In this video, we're going to talk about the beautiful and surprisingly complex violet flower. Yep, that's right, the violet. You've probably seen them popping up on lawns and in gardens, right? Or maybe even as a fancy little decoration on the dessert. But what if I told you there's this whole secret life to this common flower, one that most of us just walk right past? Yep, you heard me. This flower that we see all the time, it's got a super rich history, some really clever survival tricks, and a few surprising secrets that we are totally going to uncover. So are you ready to see this everyday plant in a whole new way? Let's dive in. Okay, first things first, let's get to know the star of our show here. We're going to cover the basics, what exactly makes a violet a violet? We'll talk about its classic look and even where in the world it calls home. So, let's break it down. At their core, violets are these small, low-growing plants. You can spot them pretty easily thanks to their delicate five-petaled flowers and those really distinct heart-shaped leaves. And here's a fun fact. Even though we call them violets, that name definitely doesn't limit their color palette. They actually come in a whole rainbow of colors. And these guys aren't just local celebrities. Oh no, they're pretty much global citizens. You can find them thriving in temperate spots all across the northern hemisphere. They just love moist, cool areas, which is exactly why you'll often see them in woodlands, meadows, and of course, happily spreading all over people's gardens. Alright, so maybe now you're feeling inspired. Thinking about bringing these beauties into your own backyard? Well, you're in luck. Violets are generally pretty low maintenance, but there are a few key tips that'll help them really truly flourish. Believe it or not, growing violets is pretty straightforward, as long as you get the conditions right. The real key here is to try and copy their natural woodland home. So what does that mean? Well, you've got to think partial shade, soil that stays consistently moist, and lots of good organic stuff like compost. Get those basics down and your violets will be super happy. One of the absolute best things about violets is that they're like the official announcement that spring is here. They're often one of the very first pops of color you'll see after a long gray winter. And get this, with the right care, like removing the old spent flowers, it's a little trick called deadheading, some types can actually keep blooming right on through the summer and even into the fall. But the violet story, it goes way beyond just the garden. For centuries, this little flower has been woven right into human culture, into symbolism, and, you won't believe it, even onto our dinner plates. And there's some seriously deep meaning here. Way back in ancient Greece, for example, violets were connected to love and fertility. Fast forward to the Victorian era, and because they're kind of shy and low-growing, they became this perfect symbol of faithfulness and modesty. Gifting someone violets back then, that was a powerful message. It meant unwavering devotion. Okay, so with all this talk of beauty and symbolism, you're probably asking a pretty practical question right about now. Can you actually eat them? And that's a great question, because believe it or not, their history in the kitchen is just as rich. And the answer is a big yes. For a lot of species, both the flowers and the young leaves are totally edible. They add this beautiful pop of color to salads, you can crystallize them with sugar to decorate cakes, or even make them into these amazing smelling jellies and syrups. Just a little heads up though, some of the yellow violets can cause a bit of stomach upset for some people, so you always want to be sure of what you're taking. Alright, we've covered the basics, but now it's time for the really fun stuff. Let's pull back the curtain on some of the truly surprising secrets that make the violets so fascinating. Let's get into the weird and wonderful facts. So how do violets spread around? Well, they have this surprisingly dramatic way of doing it. See, after they get pollinated, a little seed pod forms. But instead of just dropping its seeds, this pod dries out, builds up pressure, and then kaboom! It explodes, literally shooting its seeds away from the parent plant. How cool is that? It's just an incredible strategy for finding new places to grow. Now, in the garden ecosystem, violets are absolute heroes for pollinators, like bees and butterflies. They're a super important food source early in the spring, but they do have their enemies. If you're a gardener, you've got to keep an eye out for common pests like aphids and slugs, and also diseases like powdery mildew, which tends to pop up in damp weather. So, if you want to try collecting those explosive seeds we were just talking about, well, this kind of sums it up perfectly. It's not physically hard to do, but because those pods just explode without any warning, you need a ton of patience. And you have to be fast. Like checking on them every single day before they decide to launch their seeds all over the place. 600. Just let that number sink in for a second. 600. That's roughly how many different species belong to the Viola genus. That's just staggering, isn't it? This incredible diversity is the reason we see such a huge variety of colors, shapes, and sizes. including not just our little violets, but also their close and maybe more flashy relatives, the pansies. Okay, listen up because this next point is super important, especially for safety. That popular houseplant, the African violet, it is not a true violet, not even close. They belong to a completely different plant family. So while the true violets we've been talking about, from the viola genus, are often edible, African violets are absolutely not. Please, never, ever eat them. So, what do you think? From its exploding seeds to its deep history, and even its uses in the kitchen, the humble violet is anything but ordinary, right? It's just a perfect example of how the most common things in nature can hold the most amazing, uncommon secrets. I really hope the next time you see one, you'll look at it in a whole new light, alright? That is it for this video, everyone. Thank you for watching. Please make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, and I'll see you in the next video.